Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Zamora, and today we'll be delivering my informative speech. I have no audience today, so let's just begin. And in 2014, I was arrested for drug possession, and I was booked and sent to Clark County Detention Center. 3 days later, my case was presented before the judge. That day, I was released because the person who defended me convinced the judge to reduce my felony case to a gross misdemeanor. She stated that since it was my first offense ever in my life, I should not be given the harsh sentence. And my initial sentence was a year in jail. But thinking back about it, I was confused. Why was I receiving a year in jail for the possession of marijuana? The reason for this is called the war on drugs. And according to the Encyclopedia of Social Problems, the main reason for the overcrowded prisons in America is the war on drugs and its mandatory sentencing. I looked online and checked multiple trusted databases, and the thing that always popped up when it came to overcrowded prisons was the war on drugs. However, overcrowded prisons cause many problems for the prisoners, and these problems are associated with the lack of privacy, security, and manageability, which become exceedingly difficult with the constant influx of new prisoners and the lack of necessities such as nutrition, healthcare, and sanitation provisions that these prisoners so desperately need just to survive and live healthy lives while being incarcerated. However, these are not the only issues that arise within the prison system. Things like the psychological and the physiological come into play because of the violent prison culture that is breeding in overcrowded prisons, such as rape, murder, extortion, gang violence, you name it. It all happens in these overcrowded prisons. So prisoners who identify uh, differently from these people are forced into same-sex relationships. They are coerced into these things, and this is detrimental to them. And instead of getting better, they're getting worse. Now, let me go into detail about the root cause of overcrowded prisons in America, the war on drugs. The war on drugs correlates with overcrowded prisons like this. In 1971, the war on drugs was passed, and it would be the beginning of the mass incarceration within the prison systems in America. These this law that passed caused tough on crime to lengthen prison sentences for drug charges, for drug possession. And these people are not violent offenders. They're not hardcore criminals. They're drug addicts. And they're giving them 10-year sentences, 15-year sentences for drug possession. This is why it boomed. The prison population boomed after this law was passed. Uh, this is why the United States has the largest prison population in the entire world. Because out of the 5% of the world's prison population, the United States has 25% of its prisoners. The state of California, however, passed the punitive three-strike law in 1994, which means after the third strike, you're sentenced to life in prison. And since most of these people committed these three strikes, they're not getting out. And more prisons are becoming overfilled because of this. And another thing that in California is that it stands in a league of its own due to its non-parole policy, meaning that even after years of good behavior, they are still considered the same criminal and they're not to be released into the public square. Let me speak about the consequences that come from overcrowded prisons, such as the lack of healthcare and proper housing, and the food supply, which become exceedingly difficult to keep up with due to the constant influx of prisoners. Since prisons are overcrowded, prisoners are being diagnosed with HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, hepatitis C, and many more. Many of these prisoners are not treated with proper medical care, and it is common among overcrowded prisons because the close living quarters, the average cell is as big as a king size bed. So of course, viruses and bacteria are gonna be transmitted amongst each other. And as it comes for food, they don't get good food. The best food comes from commissary. And according to my brother who spent time in prison, it is just snacks. It is not vitamin rich food that's good for your body. Uh, Also, those who are sick, those who have cancer or terminal illnesses are dying at an alarming rate. There's one example of a man in California died because of a 2-year delay in diagnosing his testicular cancer. and another one died after reporting extreme chest pain, died 8 hours later because he was neglected medical care. And this is common among overcrowded prisons. It happens every day. And in the court case with Schwarzenegger and Plata, it was the central cause of the long-standing lethal overcrowded prison population within California. How it was causing conditions of extreme peril within the state and in prison. It was so bad that they found evidence that one inmate was dying every 6 days. Every 6 days, an inmate was dying because of the neglect of medical care. My last point, though, I want to address the social problems within overcrowded prisons. They are so serious. They affect us as well. Because you don't know it, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen to you. The main reason it affects us too is because overcrowded prisons cause recidivism, which is the tendency for a criminal to reoffend. And these criminals are being bred in these overcrowded prisons. The prison system is producing more criminals and releasing them into society. About every state in America has overcrowded prisons. And all these people understand that they're not getting better. These harsh laws are responsible for it and an unnecessary imprisonment of millions of nonviolent offenders. And this diminishes the opportunity to rehabilitate these prisoners. This also affects the law-abiding citizen because imprisoning nonviolent drug offenders only costs taxpayers billions upon billions of taxpayer money. Instead of focusing on the root cause of many of these people, which is drug addiction, not criminal life. Now, there you have it. I have gone over my 3 points about overcrowded prisons in America. However, let me go over it briefly again. The reason why prisons are so overcrowded is because of the war on drugs and laws such as the three-strike law and the no parole policy. These are the reasons prisons are overcrowded in America. Secondly, we saw the severe consequences that result from overcrowded prisons, such as prisoners being neglected proper medical care, being supplied poor food, closed living quarters where bacteria and diseases and viruses spread rapidly, and then how it leads to worse prison culture inside and out that is producing more prisoners and letting them into the streets. And then costing us our taxpayer money to house these criminals. So I end with this. Now that you're informed about America's overcrowded prison systems consist of, and you know it's a state of emergency and has not been properly addressed, how can this be happening in the land of the free? Thank you.